Antonio Gates, NFL legend, NFL great. You have an interest in the field of boxing. Can you tell me more about your involvement and what's it going to entail?
Well, my initial plan, where it all stemmed from, was I grew up. My grandfather was a professional fighter. I grew up around boxing. I grew up in the city of Detroit, which essentially is a boxing city. Unfortunately, I was able to do some things in another career, another path, but ultimately, my heart, my passion, things that I cared about was always into boxing. And one thing I noticed over time, this is my 12th year playing in the National Football League, I noticed the problems that fighters had at times, from a financial standpoint, from a trust standpoint, loyalty, whatever the case may be. I hear a lot of people talk about boxing in a negative way in terms of trusting one another or getting taken advantage of. And one day it was, I was just trying to decide what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that my heart was in, my passion was in, and boxing was something that came to mind. I just wanted to be able to take my understanding about what it takes to be number one and implement it into other fighters and other guys who are still striving to make their dreams come true. And with that being said, I didn't want to approach them as a football player. I didn't want to come to them and say, you know what, I can help you become all you can be, but yet I'm a tight end. And as a fighter, anything you do as a professional, you want someone that you feel is serious about what they're talking about, serious about their craft. So I took it upon myself to go get my promotional license, my management license, and I'm working on getting a boxing ring in Detroit as we speak. And I wanted to come to them as a promoter, as a manager, and say, look, I can help. And if you think that I have something to gain out of this, and it's not in your best interest, then so be it. But I'm telling you, I can try to make you pursue your dreams. I can give you the best opportunity. I can try to put you in the best position. But you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. You got to have the drive, the desire to want to be great. And that's what my whole philosophy is. And I paired up with a guy, Elliot Tabaron, who was phenomenal at what he was doing. He was a track runner. He had some of the same stories. We share the same similarities in terms of wanting to help athletes and wanting to see them become all they can be. And that's where it all comes from, man. It comes from a warm place. And, when guys talk to me, they know, I'm still playing. I'm still on the contract. So they know. And 9 times 10, I'm not just in it to try to take advantage of a situation. Not just in it. At the same time, we understand the professionalism, the business side of it. You got to try to draw contracts up and make sure guys are understanding this is what it's going to take, and yet this is the percentages, and et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, we believe that we can give kids opportunities, and not just kids. Some of these guys are 25, 26, 31, 32 years old. We give them the best opportunity, which no other promotion company can do, which no other management can do, because we're focused on them individually. We're not putting them on the shelf. We're not saying, okay, sign with us, and then we're done. We're going to die trying to do as much as we can. We're going to die trying to get them on TV as fast as we can. We're going to die getting them in fights. Because I realized as a kid, most of these kids, they just want to fight. They want to have an opportunity to fight and show their talents. And some of these kids just sit around for years and years without an opportunity to fight.
And how did you come across Damien? How did you link up with him, and what does he represent for your company?
Well, he was the first guy we signed, and I couldn't be more excited. Anytime you do something and it's the first thing you do, that's like your pride and joy, man. Like your first car, your first basketball shoes, whatever the case is. And we're going to make sure we do everything in our power to make sure he's on the forefront of what we do and what we stand for. And that's one thing, having Elliot, a guy who's been in the profession for such a long time, he had a way of getting a hold of Damien. And he relayed the message back to me. And I did my research. I pulled him up on YouTube. I seen some fights he had in Mexico. And I've been living in San Diego for 12 years. So I'm very familiar with the Hispanic population and how they support one another. I have a ton of fans that's Hispanic, and that's what I've always got along with, people who've had that passion, that love for not only their craft, but for their families. And I think that's where we share the similarities, is that they love their families, and that's where we want to go from there. My grandfather was a professional fighter. My uncles, my cousins, all of them fight. My brothers, and unlikely I end up playing sports in another direction and making it out that way. But my passion and my desire was always in boxing, always. And one thing I learned by watching it for so long and being a part of it for so long is that most of the time these fighters, you know, when they sign with some people, when they go places, even with agents, it's the same thing. You know, most of these guys try their best to take advantage of these athletes. They try to put them in positions. They try to dictate every little thing they do and not give them a fair chance. You know, one thing me and Elliot believed in is that we wanted to make sure that every fighter that we was signed had a fair opportunity, and we were going to die trying to get them, you know, the exposure that they need. Because one thing about these kids is that they want to fight. You know, I got kids in Detroit that hadn't had a fight in 2 and 3 years. And you know what I mean? I'm just saying, you know, what's the problem? What's the issue? And to me, is that sometimes these guys, once they sign you, they just, you know, they go back and they kind of sit down, and they feel like their job is done. And with us, we just want to make sure we pursue every angle. You know, he knows how hard I've been working and trying to make sure we get him on TV as soon as possible. You know, the more we can get people to see him, the more value he becomes, the more exposure he gets, and at the same time, give him an opportunity to fight. You know, that's what he want to do. And that's where I come in at. It's just that I wanted to be an athlete. Not only did I make it out and that I had success with what I did, but I wanted to make sure people was able to chase their dreams. They had a chance to fulfill their needs. And most of the time, you don't get that opportunity because everything is so political. And sometimes it's just not political. Sometimes it's just a financial situation. Whatever the case may be, I was willing to provide for people who was willing to dedicate themselves. Well, I gotta say that people that's willing to dedicate themselves. I'm not just doing it for anybody. I'm not just, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna just go out here and say I'm gonna sign this guy just because he can fight. Because talent just going to get you so far in this world. You know, the dedication, the desire, the hard work, that's gonna make the difference. You know what I mean? And the guy winning the championship and the guy just being a contender all his life. So that's, you know, that's something that I wanted to talk to you about. That's why I flew in town. You know, we had a phenomenal conversation on the phone, and you know, when you talk to me, I think, you know, anybody that knows me knows what I speak from a warm place. I don't speak in terms of financial. I don't speak in terms of a certain kind of motive, because you know, I signed the biggest contract in NFL history. So you know what I mean. So you got to understand, my angle is to make sure guys get an opportunity, kids especially, and there's some guys that we deal with that's older, that we still think deserves a shot because they work so hard and they dedicated themselves for so long, and the opportunity just hadn't presented themselves. Mm-hmm. And if you feel free to you know, step in if you need to. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, given, you know, you had a lot of success in the NFL, given all the determination and focus it took to be successful in that field, how is that going to carry over to your new endeavor in boxing?
I think one thing you understand once you reach the pinnacle of what you do in life, the concepts don't change. You know, like when I talked about you wanting to be in the camera business, in the film, I think everything you do, if you're a news reporter, the concepts of it, since I've been 8 years old, I've been hearing the same thing over and over and over. And I like to use this, and when I speak to the team, normally I speak to the team on a Saturday before we go out and play on Sunday. I tell them, you create your habits, and then your habits create you. And like, that's what anything you do. Once you become number one, people like to use the term, it's easier to become number one. It's hard to become number one too. You know what I mean? It's hard, dude. But once you get there, you understand that it's a small window, and everybody's chasing you from the bottom on up, and you just have to have that discipline, that dedication, that desire. These are words that you've been hearing all our life. I'm quite sure you've heard it, you know, they've heard it, I've heard it. It's the same concept. No matter what it is you do in life, you got to have that same drive. I like to view it as tunnel vision, a discretion. You can go as far as you want to go, as long as you have that tunnel vision, because can't nobody dictate how far you can go. I played basketball. Mind you, we're talking about football. I played basketball in college, and somebody told me I couldn't do it. I couldn't make that transition. I never played it down in college football. I made the transition, and once I realized this is what it takes to be successful in this business, I took it and I ran with it. I watched some guys that had success. I was around a guy that was special in my mind, Daniel Thompson, who had success. And I said, you know what? This is what it takes. Because my talent got me here, but my talent is not going to get me to the pinnacle of my career or pinnacle where I'm trying to go. We still haven't won a championship yet. That's the only thing I'm missing at this point.
Gotcha.
But in terms of how it relates to boxing, it's the same concept. It's the same thing. You know, you have to be able to have some type of tunnel vision, you know, where people are going to pull you from different directions. Adversity is going to set in. People are going to offer you things. People are going to say these things or what they can offer you and what they can guarantee you. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your will and then having an opportunity and then seizing that moment when it comes. And that's what it takes in any profession you do and any craft that you have.
What's it mean, kind of like, what's this whole moment mean for you? Is it kind of a realization of how things are coming, moving along?
You know, to me, you know, it's just one big blessing. You know, I guess it really hasn't hit me yet, but, you know, I'm excited about it, and I know, you know, they're going to do big things for me in the future.
Got you. I mean, what's it like been getting to know Antonio, just like, you know, not just on a business level, but just kind of just talking to him?
Antonio in general is just a great guy.
Yeah. Got you. And just as far as, like, your career goes, I mean, what are you looking at? You know, you got 4 fights. You're looking at that license to where you could fight in the States. I mean, what are you looking at for your future?
You know, in the future, you know, start, you know, fighting here in Vegas, California, all over the place, you know, and just getting exposure. And when time comes, everybody knows who Vasquez is.
Make sure you sign the contract. There you go. And we're gonna put somebody as the first one we sign.
We talked about putting him on the web.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Now I'm back in the game, just trying to display my name. I'm opening my delivery, so delivering my pain. And I show what I know through paper and pencil. Cause I don't rap about swag, cause swag is for bitch show.